Hello, welcome to another episode of the Magdalene interview series. I want to start by asking you, have you ever learned something that when you first learned it, it sounded amazing, but it took time for you to embody it? This is some of what we're going to be talking about today when we talk about Mary Magdalene. And I have with me today Donna D. Conrad, who's written several books with Magdalene, magic, and interweaving all through it, and has studied the Magdalene for so many years. And we're so excited to have you on the show today. Before we dive into that whole conversation, I just want to share that this interview series is in partnership with the Magdalene Pleasure Pilgrimage, Your Wild Roots, that I'm hosting to the south of France in September. And this is, I created this interview series because the pilgrimage that I'm leading is not about me coming in and teaching people and acting like some kind of authority. It's actually about each of us showing up with our own inner wisdom and shining in that way, which is exactly what we're creating on this interview series. And we know that when women can come together and drop the sister wounds and drop the mother wounds and drop the walls of defense, we go so far when we can deeply celebrate one another. So if that interests you, I'd love for you to reach out. And without further ado, please meet Donna. Donna, will you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your work?
Oh my goodness, yes. Donna Conrad. I have been an author for quite a while, and I discovered Mary Magdalene back in 2001 from a Magdalene scholar who said she thought I would really relate to this incredible woman, and so started educating me about that. And I have written in historical fiction. I have The Last Magdalene, book one is out now. And it's going to right now be a 6-book series, and it follows the Magdalene's life. I am a history and English major, so I'm blending the two. Anything that can be proven from that time is proven, but it is historical fiction. So I put my own, let's say, prejudice and impressions and intuition into the book based firmly within the time period. And
Mm.
that, if that is, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. That sounds so fascinating. Wow. Well, let's start with this question then. When do you feel like, kind of harkening back to our original question, when did you feel like the Magdalene shifted from someone you were studying, someone you were learning historical facts about, to someone you felt connected to, or someone you felt like you also related with or were embodying some of those teachings?
I would say that would have to be when I was in southern France. I was visiting some of the sites that are sacred to her. And she was this historical figure, and she was this religious figure that I knew very little about. And at the cave at Saint Baume, and you climb up, for anyone who hasn't been there, you climb up this winding path and steep stone stairway, and you end up inside of this massive cave, and there's water running inside of it, and they have converted it into a church where they do hold mass. And for me, though, it still held an essence of what it could have been like 2,000 years before. And I firmly believe that the Magdalene went there for solace, for succor, for solitude, and lived a part of her life in that cave. And I think being in there and feeling um, the history made her real to me, and yeah,
Mhm.
allowed me to accept that there is a deep, moist, uh, fecid place within myself where I can get in touch with who I truly am. And to me, that's what the cave symbolizes.
Wow, that's so beautiful. I also really believe in the power of like sacred sites and like the stones remember and the stones know, and there's an element of like going and touching those places and where it comes more alive. So what a beautiful thing. I'd love to hear too in the comments for those of you who are watching, whether you're watching live or watching on a replay, how many of you feel like the story that you were taught about Mary Magdalene growing up is the full story? Because I think
Sorry.
so, right? So few of us were. I mean, it's been just maybe 5 or 6 years for me of beginning to dig and understand, and I think there's lots of religious groups right now who have a reverence for Mary Magdalene because she's in the New Testament and she was close to Jesus, but who have no idea even that she went to France. That's well known now more so in the Catholic conversation, and certainly in the wider mystic conversation. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you in the comments because I think, yeah, it looks like for you, Donna, the deeper you got into the history and the culture and the lived meaning about Mary, that she came alive for you in a way that clearly has changed your life. You've written a bunch of books about her. What do you think that most people misunderstand about Mary today?
Oh, I think they perhaps misunderstand the incredible internal strength that she had and the times that she lived through. Um, this woman lived under a brutal Roman occupation. I mean, one step out of line and you were dead. You
Mhm.
know, it was to me the beginning of the unrelenting patriarchal force that suppressed women's rights. Because in Judea in the first century, women had rights. They had rights to inherit, to own property, to do all these things. And Rome came in and said no. So I think what people are missing is the strength it took for her to stand up. And in my research, I went to other than Christian doctrines, because as we all know, there was no Christianity then, but Egyptian, Greek. But I did follow some of the uh, Gnostic Gospels,
Mhm.
and they all say that she was present when Yeshua, who is Jesus, was crucified. And to me, what people miss is the absolute incredible courage that would have taken to present yourself in front of someone who has been condemned for insurrection by Rome and is being crucified. That to me is standing for your convictions. And that is, I think, what I've learned the most from her is to stand strong by your convictions, to be true to yourself. And it doesn't matter what other people are saying or doing, you stay true to yourself and your own beliefs.
That really, really touched me. That's
Mhm.
also not something I have thought about. Like, and I've seen this moment depicted so many times on, different movies and things, and read it a million times in my previous Christian life. And I never thought about that. Yeah, and when you think about some of these elements of their deeper love and what that, like, deeper layers of what that may have meant by her refusing to remove herself when she could have been, like, easily plowed over or, knocked out of the way,
Executed.
executed. Exactly. Like,
Well, I do say in the book something that people always say that the disciples deserted him and ran and hid. Well, they were really smart. Rome was looking for anybody related to this guy.
right.
So to me, they weren't being cowards, they were protecting themselves. But she had the internal strength and determination to say, no, if I do nothing else in my life, I will stand by him and I will witness his death because he is the anointed king. And
Mm.
I will be here for that.
I love this. I'd love to bring this into the practical world. Like, what's an example from your life where her having that integrity and courage to stand for her morals and her principles and what she knew? Um, Like, what's an example from your life where you gotten to draw from that example and, use that in your day-to-day life?
Oh my gosh, most days. Actually, a part of it is writing this book
Mm,
because you put yourself out there as an author to say to any interpretation of what you do. And I present the Magdalene as a very powerful, very passionate, very sensual woman who was a priestess of Ashara. And there is archaeological proof that Ashara was still being worshipped, even if clandestinely, in the Second Temple period. So to put that out there and to defend it and say historically, I know this may not and probably does not agree with the majority of people's views of what was happening
yeah.
in Judea at that time, but surprise, it was. And there wasn't shame connected with being sensual and sexual and with being in connection with a fertility goddess. One of
Mm.
the lines in my book that I truly love because I believe it, it says, when babes are hard to birth, it's a priestess women call, not a priest.
I have
And
chills about that. Absolutely. And we've been
so,
doing that since the beginning of time. And only recently have we started like breathing life back in again to these practices that like are truly sacred rites that we carry, um both to carry life into the planet and life out of the planet. Wow, that's so beautiful. um
mhm.
and Asherah, I have not seen that connection ever before. I didn't know about that, and she's Mesopotamian, is that right? Um,
Well, Canaanite, she was Canaanite. She was in that entire area. So she was a Canaanite. She's mentioned in the Old Testament in the Masoretic text. And it is a part of it. So asharas were usually made out of wood or out of stone, and they were small figures shaped like a woman generally. And we found them in Second Temple period, which is basically first century current era and before current era. And they have grooves where someone's thumb has rubbed them, that it's a talisman.
yeah.
And she is very much, she is it's said that she is the sister and the daughter of Isis. And
Mhm.
so she was in that entire Mediterranean basin area, and she was a fertility goddesses. All goddesses were. I mean, they were the life giving force.
Yeah.
And so to be associated with that was quite natural back then.
And it was interesting to me. It's only been maybe in the last year that I started. I've been in deconstruction of Christianity as I knew it for about the last 2.5 years, and recognizing that this idolatry that's constantly talked about all the time was actually a way to disempower the people from their religious practices. Because if you didn't read, and you only had this image thing to hold, and that was the way that you poured your heart into devotion, and now you don't have that, you have less and less access to the core doctrine, and therefore you're more easily manipulated by governments or by the church or by whatever. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. Yeah, I'd love to hear you speak in more to that if you have anything to say about that.
Oh, too much to say about
Oh, you're so fun. We have to do this more.
too much. Yeah. Ask anybody that's been in any of my workshops with that. Yeah. To me, the shame that has been heaped upon women for sexuality, for sensuality, and it goes from blame to shame to punishment.
Yeah.
And it is like it's not okay. I don't know how else to say that. I mean, standing up strong for something is to say no. Women are not temptresses. Men may be excited sexually by a woman. Is not her fault.
Yeah.
It is what one of my favorite teachers and closest to my heart said, that you take personal responsibility.
Absolutely.
So to me, if men would take personal responsibility for their sexuality and women take personal responsibility for their sexuality, then we have some equality here, and there doesn't need to be shame, blame, punishment that usually goes
Yes.
towards the feminine.
Although I will say that playing with temptress energy is quite
Oh, oh,
quite fun. But that's a conversation
ah,
for a different.
oh, we can go there too. Absolutely. You know, it is something to me. It's a difference between sensuality and sexuality.
Mm,
And
mm,
sensuality calls just from deep within a person,
yes.
and
It creates
it
this
is
magnet.
fun.
Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly. It creates this
absolutely.
magnet, and it's like, and I love this element, like when I'm in that space, it doesn't matter if I'm, what I'm calling in. I'm just calling in what I want. And it doesn't have to be a partner. It can be another client. It can be a collaborative partner like you. It can be, an opportunity that I've really been wanting or whatever. Oh, it's such fun energy to
Well,
play.
it is, and to me, the whole temptation. I mean, we've got to go back, of course, to creation mythology, and with Adam and Eve and the temptation for knowledge. And to me, temptation is a motivating factor in any type of personal expression, personal evolvement, if you want to. So, if you're not tempted to do something, you're probably not going to make any changes in your life.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And
It's
so,
very
temptation is wonderful.
I love how you are breaking down some of these words and helping us to really think differently about some of these broad stroke concepts. It's so cool. I'd love to sort of shift our conversation a little bit and talk about crossing traditions, lineages, where our spiritual traditions are coming from. You mentioned you were raised in a Celtic tradition. You studied Christian and Hebraic texts. And I'm curious how all of that has shaped your understanding of the Magdalene.
Oh, that's a tough one. You sprung that one on me. Um, I think in studying the Hebraic and the Christian text, I began to understand how biased it is, and how biased towards what we now call the patriarchy, which to me is not necessarily only masculine. It's any group of people that demand unquestioning submission to their authority. So that can be anybody
Absolutely.
who does that. So then you go to the Celtic tradition, which I was raised in, that is an earth base, which means you honor and accept life, death, rebirth. You accept all of these things, all the different phases of life, of nature, of the year. And it's the Celtic wheel of the year that goes from what we call Halloween, Samhain, which is the beginning, the new year, and goes through all of the seasons and the variations. And what I was taught is the Celtic tradition, and my mother always says, it's not particularly what you do, it's your intent that you need to answer for. Why did you do this? And to me, again, that goes back to the Magdalene standing up, going to the crucifixion, not backing down. What her intent is what gave her the strength to move forward. And so before I do most anything, I really examine my intent. Why am I doing this?
Mm,
And that is, so in the Celtic tradition you have cross quarter days, which are lunar based. So we just passed one, Imbolc, and that is the impetus or the temptation, to go back to that, for spring to come. You light candles, You drink milk because the ewes are lactating now, and it's tempting spring to come back. So that's actually in the tradition when spring begins, not when the flowers bloom and everything else, but when the intention is there and when you know it's going to happen, if that
I
makes
really love
sense.
that. Really love that. And I'd love if you're watching again on replay or live with us, do you think about where your teachings come from that you engage with and how you engage with them? And I really think that this question around intention matters a lot because many of us today are carrying multiple spiritual traditions. And what is our intention? It matters. And Mary Magdalene was a great example of this because we know she also carried multiple spiritual traditions, though the separation felt, I think, really different in her time. Race wasn't really a construct in that time, but we know now race has become a construct. Race is absolutely a part of many things. And so often I think we're borrowing from spiritual traditions from minorities who for generations have died protecting these practices that we might just come into willy-nilly. And I think that really does a major disservice to the tradition itself and to the set of people that are alive today still holding those traditions. I think it matters a lot. You talked about intention. Now I'd love to talk about kind of our responsibility. When you are working across multiple traditions, what does responsibility look like for you?
Again, it's being true to oneself, and back to your intention again. If I am because I read like the Torah multiple times,
Mm,
and when I was reading it, I was not judging it. I was respecting the fact that this is their creation mythology. When I was reading the Christian text, this is their creation mythology
mm,
that goes together, much like if I would be reading a Roman or Greek or Mesopotamian. Um, these traditions were deeply held beliefs, and the guidelines for how people lived their lives. And so I hold a deep respect for any of these traditions, just like if I went back to the Celtic roots. And
mm.
that, so I think when you are looking at spiritual practices, is just to hold in your heart that these have very deep meanings to people and to honor their intention and having created and lived by them. And
Mm.
do your best to honor them and be true to yourself.
I really love that. Thank you for sharing that. That kind of speaks to my next question, which is because we know Magdalene lived across multiple cultural contexts and stewarded many spiritual traditions. If she were here today, how do you think she would approach right relationship and even reciprocity? Like, isn't that a fun thing to think about?
I don't, I, okay, to be honest, I don't think I'm following your question. Are you looking at how would she deal with appropriation of
Yes,
other cultures? Oh, okay.
yes.
Um, I don't know. I think again she would be open to the heart of those traditions. So there are some traditions out there that are are blatantly uh, harmful to the earth, to other people. So I think she would take that into consideration.
Yeah.
I think she would take what is it that is of benefit to the heart, to the soul, to the spirit that animates each of us and animates the earth and is the connection between us and divinity. And divinity is different than God or goddess, but
Mhm.
to the unknowable. So
Mhm.
I would think she would stand on that ground. I keep using the word stand with her. Yeah, she was, and you can see on the book cover she's standing.
The tower, right? The tower.
Yeah, exactly.
I appreciate your honesty and also your like, wait, where are we going exactly with these questions?
Yeah.
Because for me, it's something I'm very new at. It's something that asking myself, how am I in right relation is not something I had asked for many, many years of, you know, for me, getting into deeper spiritual practices came from basically onset and diagnosis of PTSD. I'm finally getting to the point where I was like, well, I've tried all the medications. I have depression. I'm so happy. I've like have all the boxes checked in my little family and everything. And I feel crazy. So I'm going to start looking outside of myself for, and outside of the things that I
Mhm.
was raised with for peace and for healing. And for many, many years, it was just this naive, like, oh my gosh, let me try this, let me try that. And I'm so grateful that I have like was born into this body in a time in the privilege that I could access that. But I'm now getting to go, oh, wait a minute. And I stepped on some things when I was doing that. And I'm asking myself this about so many of the traditions like that I have come into relation with, and like, what does reciprocity look like? For the fact that I'm in love with chanting of, Sikh, beautiful Sikh Gurmukhi texts. Like, what does right relation look? I don't know. I don't have the answer yet. And I'm just asking these questions. And it's mattered to me to come in and ask these questions on these calls because I think that a lot, what I discovered in, beginning to run this retreat and having more conversations with women around their Magdalene is that it's become a white saturated space. And I'm like,
Mm.
well, there's definitely women of color who have a lot to say about the Magdalene. How did our voice get so dang loud? And I'm like, it's because nobody's asking these questions. So
We do tend to be louder. But I would say so. In my time, I mean, I was raised Celtic. I studied Tibetan Buddhism for quite some time and had a wonderful teacher um, from Tibet, actually.
mm,
And as long as I felt a connection between myself, my inner self, and the unknown, that to which I was moving towards, and
mhm,
that felt like it was an alignment. I didn't feel like I was co-opting anything, that I was being respectful, that I was appreciating the tradition and understanding it in my very limited manner, but
mhm.
it still had a place for me at this time. And then when it no longer served or I no longer served it, then I move away very respectfully.
Mm.
I
I,
think a
I,
lot of it comes to respect and to the feeling, like what you're saying with the you said it was Sikh.
yeah.
Yeah, the Sikh. If you appreciate it and honor it, you're not defaming it. You're not using it for your own personal gain. You're using it for your betterment and the betterment of the world. I see no harm, no foul.
Hmm. Thanks so much for having this conversation with me today. I think I would love to ask one last question before we wrap up, and you can tell us, the things you have coming up and stuff like that. It's just maybe as we take a moment and kind of drop into this energy or frequency or archetype of Mary Magdalene. And from that place, what do you feel like a message that she would have for people today, maybe for women today? What would she say?
One word would be love.
Mm,
And love is in many different forms. But if you truly love, I think you walk the path you're meant to walk and that you do no harm.
Well, I don't know what it was. You said that word, it like pierced straight to my heart.
Yeah, love is an incredibly powerful word to me, and it's a feeling that I associate with the Magdalene in so many different ways throughout the book, throughout the whole series, because I'm going through her entire life, to write that and seeing her grow and become the incredible teacher and healer she was. And I think at the root of all of that was the ability to allow ourselves to truly love. And that means being vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. And love deeper and deeper. And I think just to kind of circle back to some of the questions that I have intentionally brought into this conversation is like, it as white women, if we're going to step into these spiritual spaces and then use it to bypass where we only feel love and light all the time, the
Mhm.
reality is love breaks our heart wide open. And the deeper I have gotten in touch with these like true ancient feminine principles and deities and practices, the more that my heart is like, I mean, I have to go like, oh, can I be with all of this? Because in my privilege, it was very easy for me to have blinders on and be like, that's somebody else's problem. I'll pray for you from over here, instead of like, let me really be with all that is happening on this planet, and then just trust and ask, what is my next step? What is my next action? Like, show me how to live my life in love as an offering. So, and I feel that.
Precisely. That's beautifully said it. I would agree with it
Hmm.
10,000 times.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you. Well, this has been such a
Okay,
great conversation. I like want to pick your brain on all the things, but that's why you
good.
wrote books. So we need to
That's
go.
why I wrote books.
We need to go and buy Donna's books. And Donna, you
And
want to share anything with us that you have like an
uh,
upcoming class or anything like that?
oh, before coming up, I would like to encourage everyone who is watching this, go to France. Go to where the Magdalene walked. Her energy is still there. Go, go with someone who knows what what her energy is and is willing to, I hesitate to use the term, you correct me if I'm wrong, to initiate. And that doesn't mean to make something mystical out of it, but to allow to open a gate so that you can walk through. And walking through those gates in France is different than walking through them anywhere else to
Mm,
me. So that was, go to France. Just go
thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
to the south.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Okay.
And for
Yeah.
me, my
Yeah.
next books are coming. Yeah, my next books are coming up. The next, I'm each book is following the Magdalene through her life, through the major portions of her life, and the next one takes place in Alexandria,
Mm,
Egypt, and hopefully will be out this year. And from there, she's forced into southern Gaul, which is now southern France, and her life there, where it begins to coalesce, and she makes all that she's experienced and been taught, um, into her own brand, so to speak, into her own teachings, which are quite profound. So
wow.
that's where we're going.
Sounds so amazing. Thank you, Donna. We've also included links to be
Thanks.
able to connect with her further in the description. So go check her out, give her a follow. What a great conversation. And thanks
Yeah,
everyone for watching and tuning in. We'd love to hear
that's
your
good.
thoughts, your feelings, your questions, anything like that in the comments. We'll keep an eye out over the next several days to check back in and
Mhm.
answer those things. And we'll see you again next time on the Magdalene interview series. Bye for now.